Third thing that I just absolutely adore about, if I can even say that about my own project, but the thing that moves my heart is how dependent we were on the Holy Spirit, and how half the moments on this record, if not the vast majority of these moments, are simply because of following the Holy Spirit. It's like a thing on my life to reproduce, to try and teach, not just worship leaders, but worship team members, people that play instruments, is learning how to follow the Holy Spirit in your preparation, in the moment, because you never know where He'll take you. And if you're bold enough to take like a simple risk, if you're bold enough to just be obedient to the simple little promptings that He puts inside of you, He will do what you cannot possibly think or imagine. He's so faithful to do that. The first track on this record, Holy Ground, it's not even a song that makes it into my set list very often. I've maybe played it 3 or 4 times live, like in my entire time leading since it's come out. And it wouldn't have made it onto the set list. That moment wouldn't have happened, but we were flying to Europe to do a Holy Spirit Nights tour all over Europe, starting in Ukraine and making our way all the way down to Portugal. And one of the stops was Paris. And I remember my guitar player, Mateos, who was on the plane, also mixed this record. But he had an encounter with the Lord, and he had a vision. He's like he couldn't quite describe it in the full depth of what he was seeing, but he saw angels ascending and descending, kind of like a Jacob's ladder kind of a thing. As we played that song, particularly in Brussels and in Paris. And so Brussels, we were only really able to get to a chorus of it, but we were doing it just to be faithful to what we felt was the word of the Lord. And then Paris, we're like, okay, we're gonna open this set with this song. And I tell you what, like when you are faithful to follow the promptings and the invitation of the Holy Spirit, heaven, there's breakthrough attached. If I were to split my worship leading career, so to speak, like in two, there was before Jared learned how to follow the Holy Spirit with intentionality, and then after. And I tell you what I've seen after has changed and wrecked my life for forever. There's no going back to a time where I'm never going to be attentive to the Holy Spirit. I'm not gonna the smallest hint or prompting jump off whatever cliff I feel like He's asking me to do, because I've just seen Him come. He's so faithful to come. And that was one of those nights where we felt this really significant in Paris, right in the heart of the city. We were at the Rex Theater, which is, they've never had a Christian event at that theater up until that moment. And here we are opening up with Holy Ground. And it was a holy moment. Something was consecrated. We don't even know the full extent. That's the beauty of being faithful, is you don't actually have to determine the results or the scope of what God does. But we felt Him mark that city that night. And who knows, all the different things that will come from that moment. But it was a marking moment. It was like God Himself showed up. Heaven broke in. So powerful. I could go on and on and on with all the different stories about the freedom moment in Brazil. That, Surrounded wasn't on the set list. We weren't planning on going there. It wasn't in a key that I would normally lead it. We just got to the middle of the set, and I just felt freedom and joy breaking out. And you never really know what to do with that, so I'm just on the one, because the one's a sweet spot for me when it comes to just trying to flush out what the Lord is kind of prompting me to do. And so we just began to sing about what He wanted to do in the room, and then all of a sudden that song came to mind and we stepped into it. And then I just felt like, okay, that was beautiful, but we're not done. Like something else needs to break out. And I remember saying, like, not all deliverance happens while we sing. What I meant to say is, like, some deliverance happens while you sing, some deliverance happens in other ways. Obviously, if you're a thinker, you're going to be like, that's a weird way to phrase that. I didn't mean to phrase it that way. Hence the raw element of this record. But I felt like that prompting the Lord. I like, if we just dance, if we just rejoice in the Lord, like tonight, just let this thing happen. Something's gonna break out. And this is why I'm so grateful for, like, musicians who also know how to follow the Holy Spirit, because a lot of times I'll jump off a cliff and it's up to them to follow. And my gosh, do they do it so amazing. But I did, and I actually didn't even know what to do after after I said, hey, I feel like this is what the Lord's doing and this is what he wants to do. And then my band just literally took over and just launched that moment. And it became one of the most wild, explosive times of freedom that I've ever been a part of. It was just nuts what the Lord did. Last story I'll share about following the Holy Spirit is just, I remember being at the Send in Orlando, and I hadn't played Let It Rain in probably a decade, like not kidding. Wasn't even a song that was, again, in my head at all. I think we were planning on opening with either This Is Amazing Grace or All Hail King Jesus. That was like what my band was. And so when we step into that moment, you'll hear, Cassie Campbell on bass, and she's just kind of on the one, kind of swelling on the one, and we're in C. But it was so interesting because my friend Michael Koulianos, right before we went up, just began to ask the Lord, let it rain, like let it rain in this place. And I couldn't hear him because my ears were in. So I just stepped up kind of in this, oblivious space. And I began to hear the people sing, let it rain, let it rain. And I've heard lots of people sing lots of things, and most of the time I don't feel like it's the Lord. But this time I knew it was the Lord. And I'm like, that's exactly what we're supposed to sing. And I just began to sing it. And the wildest thing happened. And again, you can either believe in these moments and God was marking this moment, or you can believe it was just some natural, phenomena. But it was just so distinct, though. It was like this light misting rain played the entire time we were at that stadium. And people sent me pictures later of the weather radar map. And all it was is this little tiny green blip, nowhere else, but just a little tiny green blip right over the stadium. And we played that song, and it rained the entire time we sang Let It Rain. And the second we moved on to a different song, the rain dried up for the rest of the night, never came back. And I'm just like, this is the kind of stuff that I burn for, that I long to see released in the earth. When we are faithful to just obey the small promptings of the Lord, heaven comes in such a profound way. I'm so glad that I wasn't just sticking to the program or the set list or, any of that kind of a thing. And I'm so glad we were able to capture that moment.